Welcome to the second episode of Games from the Block, a podcast devoted to blockchain gaming by eGamers.io. I'm your host, George Zagarakis, and today with me is Karel Striegel from Arkane Network, a wallet as a service and API provider for 9 different blockchains. Karel, thank you for being with us today for the second episode of Games from the Block.
Hi, George. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So, a quick introduction. My name is Karel. Quite have a quite technical background, and I'm the CEO of Arcane for the past few years now.
You guys are solving a big industry problem, which is the adoption. We can't expect players to learn how to use MetaMask and all these different wallets when it comes to play a blockchain game. So why don't you tell us what you're doing with Arcane Network?
Well, we're trying to help the adoption. That's basically a bit our mission. When we started out, we noticed that there were several issues related the user experience of blockchain applications or blockchain games. And slowly we started to build a platform trying to tackle these issues one at a time. First, we started out by being able to offer applications the means to generate wallets for their users so that their users don't first have to go and download some third-party software, configure it, install it, back it up, and then go back to the game. But if a user comes, a mainstream user, who doesn't have a wallet, that actually the application itself can provide one to the user out of the box. Then afterwards, we start to add more additional features like a fiat gateway to allow users to buy crypto from within the wallet or from within our interface with the app, because we noticed that most of the applications, or for example, if the mainstream user had to buy an NFT, they would have actually a wallet, but still they were lacking the crypto needed to purchase the item or to make the transfer. Even though, for example, some apps actually have already um, solved that in a different way, for example, with gas stations, which is something we also support. Um, so bottom line, yeah, we're trying to help the adoption by creating a platform that tries to make blockchain as user-friendly as possible for the mainstream user.
Okay, great. This is not only for games, right? In your use cases, you have various decentralized and I believe centralized applications that use blockchain technology, but not just games, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, an application from any industry can use us. Either it's finance, like portfolio or an asset manager, or it can be IoT. Um, we have different industries like supply chain as well, but we find gaming very interesting because um, in the gaming industry, everything has to be as smooth and as quick as possible with at least the amount of user interactions. If you can reduce a click in the process, it's a big gain. So we strongly believe if we can optimize our processes and our flows for game studios, for the game industry, then it will also be optimized, or it will also have an optimized user experience in the other industries.
Okay, cool. So, your interest in gaming is proved, and I believe it's a reason why Atari choose Arcane Network, right? You guys partnered with Atari, which is an iconic brand in gaming for many, many years. I mean, one of the founders of gaming. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's correct that a few weeks ago we have announced officially our partnership with Atari, which probably everyone in the gaming industry has heard of before. So Atari is going to enter the blockchain space, and their first action is creating an Atari token for gaming and entertainment. And they were looking for partners, more specifically for a wallet provider that is very user friendly. And then they ended up with Arcane. So for us, it was also a good partnership as well. we will support their token in our application. And currently, so the next phase is we're currently setting up a co-branded marketing campaign, which we hope to launch in the next couple of weeks. They are very serious, looking into blockchain and taking the necessary steps. You probably also noticed that they have announced additional partnerships as well. Me personally, I'm very excited to see what they will uh, what their next plan will be regarding the token that they are going to release.
Well, yeah, Atari has made some moves when it comes to blockchain gaming. They teamed up with some with Virtual World, the sandbox. Uh, they said in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, that Roller Coaster is coming to the blockchain along with another game. I can't really recall the name right now. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting fact that Atari is moving into the blockchain, and it's not only Atari but many other big game studios, developers, and publishers are moving to the blockchain. Like Ubisoft recently, they released that Rabbits token collectible, which it's not actually a game, right? But it's something. It's an interest from Ubisoft and a charity project that I believe Ubisoft will get some valuable feedback, and from there they will see how to integrate blockchain into their games. So basically, we're seeing a wave of big game studios tipping their toes on blockchain gaming right now.
Yeah, I agree, and it's very interesting to see. Some additional information about Ubisoft. They also have an accelerator, and I believe in the last batch of the startups that joined the accelerator, I think 80% of them were blockchain-related projects. So that's
Yeah,
also a very strong sign that they have a strong interest in the technology.
the Entrepreneurs Lab, they choose like 5 blockchain gaming projects to support and advise. This like happened like last week. In continuation with our blockchain gaming discussion, Arkane Network team up with Matic. Now, because of the Ethereum gas fees and all these problems that make games unplayable on Ethereum, and that's the truth. You can't play games on Ethereum right now. I mean, we all love Ethereum, right? It's the mother of NFTs and all that stuff, but games are unplayable. So many projects are riding the Matic train, and especially when Loom abandoned the gaming industry for healthcare and travel one, everyone is jumping on Matic. So you teamed up with Matic Network, and that's a very interesting fact. What can you tell us about this cooperation? What are you guys going to do? How this happened?
Yeah, how did it happen? I think one of my co-founders met them, I believe, at some kind of conference, probably. But we soon got to communicate, and we noticed that they were actually very open, very productive, very forthcoming, and they were also accepting, or we actually had the same view and vision. They also liked our product, and it was for us very refreshing because you have to know we support multiple chains. I think up 9 in the meantime. So we have some experience in working with and contacting or communicating with some of these companies and foundations that are behind a certain blockchain. Matic really surprised us with their level of openness and their ability to quickly communicate and share technical information. Just to give you an example, I think after 2 or 3 talks, we already were in a chat with some of their developers, um, so that they could support us when we were um, starting to integrate them and to support them. In the meantime, yeah, we announced our partnership, and we slowly started to support their sidechain first in our backend so that dApps could actually already use Matic. And then afterwards, we added Matic support into our front end so that all our end consumers, like the users who have an Arkane wallet, can actually log in and see their assets on Matic. They can import their Ethereum wallets into Matic, so it is um, it's quite easy to view which assets live on the Matic network and which assets still live on the Ethereum network. In the meantime, we also support NFTs for Matic, which was quite a challenge actually, because that wasn't not done before. Even though there were NFTs on Matic, there was not a single wallet which could actually show those NFTs. Games
Okay.
could do that very easily because a game, if you just allow me to explain a bit, a game actually knows the
Yeah, please.
contract. So it's easy for the game to query, okay, does this user have an item of my contract? But we as a wallet, we don't know the contracts. If you tomorrow deploy an NFT for eGamers on Matic and you don't tell us, we don't know. So we actually have to investigate the entire Matic chain. And we actually had to do some additional development and spend some resources to be able to offer and acquire the feature. So um, I'm happy to say that for Matic, we're the only wallet on the market right now that's able to show a user's NFTs, and we support not only ERC 721 but also ERC 1155 for them.
Can we see ERC 1155 on Matic, for example?
Yeah, in our wallet at least. It depends. Of course, 721 is still the most used standard, while me personally, and that's a personal opinion, I believe 1155 is more interesting from a game point of view.
It's way more advanced than ERC 721, right? You can do batch and it saves gas fees, so it's very interesting concept to see 1155 in other chains rather than engine. I believe this token will greatly help Matic to expand and reach more capabilities when it comes to gaming.
Yeah, well, it will be up to the game studios to actually look into um, that standard and actually use it. But we support both, so what we are concerned, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, from my experience with your platform, I can see pretty much any NFT I own, whether it is 721 or 1155. So that's a very good sign. So for the users that don't know about Matic, most of the users don't know about side chains and that stuff. What are the advantages over Ethereum?
Yeah, so why That's actually a good question. So why did we start supporting Matic besides the points already raised? Was actually that we were looking for a blockchain that was very compatible with Ethereum, but could perform much quicker and have cheaper transaction fees. So you, so we actually ended up with Matic, which is a sidechain of Ethereum. Um, and by, like I said, trying to implement it, it went very smoothly. It's also an EVM based sidechain, which actually meant for us that our backend was almost for 99% was supporting Matic out of the box. We didn't really have to do a lot of changes to be able to support their sidechain. Um, and the reason why we see that as an advantage is because for game studios and gamers, if, for example, they buy something or they acquire an item in game and you want to move that on chain, it needs to be quick. The player cannot wait for, let's say, 20 seconds until he receives that item. He wants to have it like instant. Even though it's still blockchain and it will never be as fast as a traditional system or traditional game, it still needs to be quick enough. Um, and there are several other solutions on how you can mitigate the delay issue for a user, but at the end, it still needs to be fast and it still needs to be cheap as well if you're going to have a system with 100,000 players and you have to transfer NFTs multiple times, you don't want to pay a transaction cost of 20 cents per transaction.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now in Ethereum transaction costs saying 20 cents, much higher than this, and probably a transaction might take an eternity to to go through the whole scene with the Tether token and the gobbling up, spamming the Ethereum network reminds me the December 2018 situation. I would like to discuss about why a developer should choose Arkane Network and what are the benefits of using your service to develop or add into an existing platform or game.
Well, of course, I'm a bit biased to answer that question, but from my point of view, first of all, it's very easy to integrate us. So we have, if you already support Web3 in your application, it only takes 5 minutes to add support for Arcane. And what's the benefit? The benefit is that your players, your users, they don't need additional software. They don't need to install a desktop client. They don't need to install a browser plugin. Um, and our solution works on desktop and mobile. So if you have a game or an app which works on both, your users can actually use it on the go with their mobile, and if they want on desktop as well, and still use the same wallet. And our main benefit is probably if you're targeting less tech savvy players, if you're really targeting the mainstream audience, because we try to make the flows as simple and easy as possible, as well with transactions. Just to give you an example, if an app proposes a user a transaction, we will first dummy execute the transaction to see if it's actually going to be successful or not. And if it's not going to be successful, will immediately report that to the user. If his balance is too low, we will report it to the user before he actually can make the transfer. If he has an issue, we have a support team that is standing by to answer any questions that they might have, um, either being that an issue with a transaction or maybe even with the game. In that sense, we sometimes act a bit as the first line support. And the benefit is that we are usually in contact with the people or the developers or projects that are integrating us, so we can quickly forward the information to them like, hey, we have here a user who has a problem. What do you advise, or do we need to forward him to your support team? So I think these are very interesting benefits. And besides that, like I said, we're multi-chain. So we are not tied to one specific blockchain. So if you want to support multiple ones, you can just implement our API and you have access to all of them. For example, everyone who has supported us or support us can immediately use Matic as well, benefit from the NFT solution we've built. So yeah, there are a bit multiple reasons actually.
Let's say I'm making a game. I choose the Arkane Network. I can pretty much connect with your APIs and offer to the players the possibility to play on various blockchains, right?
Yes, of course it depends a bit how far you want to go with on-chain logic. Because of course every game is unique and different. So if you want to put your game logic on chain, there we cannot just offer you a template. That's something you will have to do some research about. But if you want to interact with NFTs and use them as game items, I think Arcane is ideally suited. You can just use our APIs like you're used to with any API. You can ask which NFTs does this user holds, what's his address. You can quickly create a transaction. It's as simple as send X to and from. And we are currently now um, working on improving our API so that also the game developers can easily create NFTs using our API, um, which will make it also much more user friendly from their point of view as well.
Let me get this straight. As a user, I want to play a blockchain game, and I have literally no idea what MetaMask is, what Matic is, and how do I play. When a game or a platform integrates your services, what I actually do is create an account and start playing, right?
Yeah, so what happens if it's the first time you enter our system, you create an account, and we will ask you to define a PIN like you have on your normal credit card or bank account.
Yeah.
And once you've defined a PIN, we will ask you which wallet do you want to create, or we create a wallet for you depending on how you enter our system. For example, if you're playing a game that runs on Matic, then we will immediately create a Matic account for you. We will not even ask you which account that you want because we know that you need a Matic account. So we will create one for you, and we will immediately send back that information to the game so they know, okay, this new user has received this account, and he can start playing.
To be honest, this is what the industry needs, right? I mean, you can expect typical mainstream gamers to understand about blockchain technology. All they need is to set up an account and start playing with no private keys, with no warnings that you're gonna lose all your items if you lose your private key and all that stuff. Definitely, this is something that keeps the blockchain gaming industry back.
I think there are several things, but the UX or the user experience is at least one of them. Also, cross device is also very important. Being able to go on mobile and having the same interaction when you're on mobile or when you're on desktop. Um,
This is something that Arkane can help.
yeah, I find it personally very annoying if I use my desktop and I'm on a tab, then I have to, for example, use MetaMask, and then when I go on mobile, I have to use a different client for using the same app actually.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. That's true. I mean, as a blockchain gamer, most of the times I have to use a different mobile wallet or mobile tab browser anyway to play a game, and this is really frustrating. So you've been um, in the blockchain gaming industry, I believe, since the early beginning, and you guys have some experience around gaming. So can you give us your thoughts about blockchain gaming industry?
well, my thoughts are it's probably if you look at the blockchain ecosystem as a whole, it's probably one of the most popular areas, um, followed by DeFi probably. Um, what I like about blockchain gaming is that it um, shows a light on how you can use blockchain in a different way. Because for the general audience, the main public, it's always related to crypto and ICOs and all of that, which has like quite a negative image. But if you start explaining how the game industry is actually using it, you people really start to see what's possible and start to understand the benefits. And when you start to explain what kind of multiverses are being created, stuff like that, they really um, you see it in their eyes that they start to understand what the technology actually can mean, and it's actually in that sense a very interesting space to be in, and it's also very nice to see that um, large players are showing interest or slowly starting to join the space now with Atari, with Ubisoft. We also last month we started for the very first time with a webinar about the very basic principles on how you can use blockchain to monetize your game. and we promoted the webinar on um, yeah, game development channels, indie game developer channels, and so forth. And it was like a good test to see, like, okay, are we going to actually get a bit of traction, or will it be very negative? Will it be very positive? How many people will we actually be able to recruit? And we said, okay, we don't want to do it too big because it's also a first webinar, of course. We still had to learn a lot, and um, also don't set the bar too high, don't raise the hopes. And I think in the first webinar we had around 50 people that subscribed. Um, it went very well, to be honest. I was not expecting to actually reach 50 people, to be honest. And we quickly afterwards announced the second webinar, basically the same subject, beginner's guide to game monetization with blockchain. And then we reached 60 subscribers. So it's a total of, yeah, 110, 120 people that are interested in using blockchain as in game development.
Well, keeping in mind that we are still in a growing industry, this is a good amount of people to attend. This is a good turnout.
One last thing I want to add, we didn't actually do any paid promotion. It was very organic. We just shared it a bit on Twitter, on Reddit, on Facebook, and that's it. We didn't actually spend any marketing budget on that. So um, in that regard, I'm actually quite happy with the outcome.
Yeah, it's a good number. I mean, I've seen a lot of webinars when it comes to blockchain gaming, talks and all that stuff. Being able to have like 50 people on a webinar when it comes to blockchain gaming, and especially a niche topic like game monetization, which doesn't interest any gamer but only developers. It's a very good number. And speaking of game monetization, what do you think is the best method to monetize a game right now on blockchain?
Oh, it's the
That's a
best
pretty rough
method.
question.
Yeah, it's really a hard question. Yeah. Um,
Well, the two best methods then.
what I like is when they really start to think out of the box, and being able to transition from um, let the transition from being able to market the game, which is still very important, but actually focus more on the item and create value for the item. And it starts with releasing the game and your item, and the first value of your item is being able to play it within your own game. But then by increasing the value by creating partnerships and being able to add additional functionalities to the item outside of the game, that is something I find very interesting, and looking forward to see where it's going to go. Um, it's also not very easy to specify the ideal and the best way to do that at this moment in time, because the industry is still very young and things really need to we still really need to see what's going to happen. For example, a case which of course we all hope not to see, but over time it will be inevitable. What happens when a game studio or a game stops its end of life, or the team leaves the project? What will happen with the NFTs? And I think what will happen will be able to tell us a lot, and we'll see also if it really is a benefit having a multiverse, if other people will pick it up or not, which will also bring um, a very interesting point of view to the ecosystem.
Yeah, you're talking about the gaming multiverses out there, which it is a great benefit of the blockchain gaming, being able to own a sword. And I'm saying own because in the rest, in the normal games, you do not own your items, but when it comes to blockchain, you truly own your item. It's yours. You can sell it. You're not afraid of getting your account terminated because you use the shady market to sell something. And the concept of the multiverse, where another game comes and integrate your item to their game, is beyond imagination. Games integrate the same item. We've seen a lot of multiverses in the gaming space right now being created. Some are already established, and you have games integrating your items, and it gains value. Even even if you drop your game, even if your game stops, this item is still playable in other games. The exact same item. I mean, that's amazing. That's something that I wouldn't even think 3 years ago.
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to see if we get something like, for example, games don't create a character anymore. The player brings his own character, and the character is a collection of different NFTs, being it's, I don't know, clothing, weapons, vehicles, armor, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And at each game that it's a certain standard, and that each game supports that standard. And then if you play one game, you can receive a specific armor and then move it along into the other game, and actually really have your own character being your own property. I don't know if we will see such implementations, but if you start to think about it, all these things are actually possible.
yeah, we will, we will. I remember there is a trade card game. I think it's called Tides of Magic, which when it began, they didn't have NFTs. They were saying, bring your NFTs and come and play, and they were supporting other trading card games like Splinterlands and all that stuff. And I could go to Tide of Magic, log in, and import my wallet, which okay, it was a difficult process and time consuming process because you had to start importing wallets, and this is also a dangerous thing to do. But yeah, they created a game where you could go with your own NFTs from different games and from different chains. So I believe this concept will take off eventually.
To come back to your earlier question about some forms or ways of game monetization, what I also like is that some games really focus on the trading aspect, and they try to increase the number of trades as much as possible by creating different item classes, um, and have different types of character classes. So, for example, I'm a warrior, I need a sword or I need armor, and in a fight, my armor gets damaged, so over time, I will need to buy new armor. So I'm the one that is looking for armor, but since I'm a warrior, I actually cannot make armor because I'm a fighter. So I need to actually go to another person who is maybe a builder who can't fight, but he's actually focused on building the items, and have like an in-game economy like that, and try to stimulate it as much as possible. Which is also something the sandbox does, but also in a very interesting way. They actually, on the one hand, you have the designers who actually create very cool art and game items. Then you have the player who actually plays it, but then you also have the the people that are building small games the on the sandbox. And I think having this kind of dynamic really makes it interesting, and also makes it very vibrant. Players need to communicate and interact with other players, and not only with the game. And then you again see the benefit of having these items. So
Definitely, and the MMORPG genre is the perfect fit for blockchain gaming. And speaking of the sandbox, what's your opinion about the virtual worlds on the blockchain, of course?
about the virtual worlds in general,
Yeah, the virtual world. Yeah, in general, but on the blockchain.
I
Is
think it's quite cool to be honest. It also opens up a very interesting door regarding advertisement. And if you see what the sandbox specifically is doing with their land, and how successful it is, it shows there is a lot of interest. And they actually combine it then immediately with marketing. For example, Atari has a very nice piece of land. The Atari logo is very bright and visible when you look at the land. And what you see is that other game companies also see that as being part of an advertising, branding, marketing strategy. So let's try to buy land close to Atari, for example. Um, and this is just the beginning. I'm really looking forward to see what will happen when actually they start using the land for different kind of purposes, um, and where users go and will visit these pieces of land. So I think it's very interesting, and we haven't seen the last of it. I just remembered another game. I'm sure you will know it, George. Is the one. It's also a very open world, a bit like Sims, where actually you can create
Think
houses and have a job.
Decentraland.
Yeah, not that one. Was another one.
We're speaking
Neo.
about
It's something with Neo.
New
New
World.
World.
Yeah, New World. It's one of
Yeah,
the oldest virtual worlds, if
yeah.
not the first.
It's also very. I spoke to one of the founders at the conference once, and also his vision was really nice. The goal would be that basically you had actually he wanted to push the project to the point where actually you have a job in the game, but really like a job, and you can earn revenue and income on the role that you have in the game, and that it's actually needed by other players and users to be able to for them to achieve their goals, basically like in real life, more or less.
I've tried New World. It's been more than a year since I've played New World, and it was still in a very early phase. I remember back then the English translation wasn't ready, and it was like half Chinese and half English, and I was really amazed. I was amazed with the things you can do in there, and this makes me think that it may be in 10 years from now gaming won't be a waste of time. I mean, it was never a waste of time,
Yeah,
but
indeed.
now you can make money, you can make a living. We're not saying that you're gonna be rich or something, but you can be a full time gamer and get a salary that you would get by working on a restaurant or an IT company or whatever. There is another question I have for you, more like a predictive one. Where do you see blockchain gaming in 5 years from today?
5 years is a very long time in our industry. Well, I hope that we don't really talk about blockchain gaming anymore. I hope we just talk about gaming or have like a different acronym like first person shooter or something, some an acronym like that to define a game that is using blockchain technology. That would already be nice to see in 5 years' time. I hope to see in this year or next year some releases of big titles, like really big titles with normal gameplay using blockchain technology. And I think we're moving towards that when I see what people are working at. And what I do hope as well is that um, using blockchain technology in games um, can get rid of the negative vibe related to cryptocurrency in general and ICOs, because it has actually some impact on that as well. Because if you talk about or talk to traditional game developers and you think or you mention the word blockchain, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Oh, probably a scam or a money grab or whatever. while you actually are more mainly talking about the technology and then be able to create items that are interchangeable and that actually follows a standard and that you can really benefit. And I'm not only talking about gameplay, because there is also the huge marketing angle, being able to raise funds before the game is live, or actually be able to provide items already to players before the game is live. Maybe if you then combine it with a partnership so that the items are playable already in another game while you're still developing your game, are also huge advantages, which are maybe not always promoted as much, or game developers don't always know. While if you look at the game industry and you start talking to indie developers, um, yeah, it's always about budget, not having enough budget to actually full-time work on the game, or hire the designer that they would like, or not having budget to market or to brand or to distribute the game. While I believe using blockchain technology could solve, I'm not saying 100%, but could actually help solve parts of these problems. Um, and for example, in our case with Arkane, yeah, we have um, a user base. We have game studios that use us. So for us, it's not a problem if for anyone that integrates us to send out some email and information about a new partner of ours to spread the word, to help market their new solution or their new product, their new service, their new game. I think in this stage of the industry, it's important that we all try to help each other and all grow together, and help boost each other.
Okay, Karel, thank you a lot for being with us today for the second episode of Games from the Block. I believe our listeners got some very valuable information about uh, what what is Arkane Network actually doing and how this could help blockchain gaming and blockchain platforms in general and speed up the adoption process. It was a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well,
And
thank you for having me again. It was also a pleasure from my side. And if anyone is interested in checking out our wallet or our solutions, please do. We're
the
always open for feedback, positive, negative, to improve our product. So,
sure thing, you guys should check out Arkane Network. The website is arcane.network, correct?
yeah,
Okay,
that's
guys,
correct.
go sign up, get your wallet, forget about private keys and all that stuff. Everything is safe there, and let us know what you think.